The Hound of the Baskervilles, 1902. Episode 2. The Mysterious Death of Sir Charles. Welcome back, fellow detectives. Last time, we heard the terrifying legend of Hugo Baskerville and the demonic hound that has supposedly cursed his family for over 2 centuries. But legends are one thing, actual death is another. Today we dive deeper into the mysterious circumstances surrounding Sir Charles Baskerville's death, examining the evidence that made even a rational doctor like James Mortimer question everything he believed about science and reason. Have you ever encountered something that challenged your understanding of what's possible? What if I told you that sometimes the most rational explanations sound more impossible than supernatural ones? Prepare yourself, as Holmes begins to unravel whether Sir Charles died from a curse or from something far more calculated and human. Picture yourself back at Baker Street the following morning. The fog has lifted slightly, and you're waiting with Holmes and Watson for Dr. Mortimer to arrive with Sir Henry Baskerville. But before the new heir appears, Holmes wants to examine every detail of Sir Charles's death more thoroughly. "Watson," Holmes says, spreading out a map of Devonshire on the table, "before we meet Sir Henry, I need to understand exactly what happened on the night Sir Charles died. Dr. Mortimer's account yesterday was emotional and focused on the supernatural elements. Today I want cold hard facts. Dr. Mortimer arrives promptly at 10 o'clock, and Holmes immediately begins his interrogation. "Dr. Mortimer, I need you to walk me through that night as if you were testifying in court. Every detail, no matter how small. Begin with Sir Charles's state of mind in the days before his death." Mortimer settles into his chair, clearly relieved to focus on factual details. Sir Charles had been increasingly nervous for several weeks before his death. He became convinced that something was following him when he walked on the moor. He asked me repeatedly whether I'd heard of any large dogs in the area, strange dogs that didn't belong to local residents. "Did he describe what he thought was following him?" Holmes asks sharply. Mortimer nods. "He claimed to have heard howling on several nights, a deep, resonant howling unlike any normal dog. He said it came from the direction of Grimpen Mire, the great bog in the center of the moor. Think about this carefully, detective. Was Sir Charles experiencing genuine stalking, or was his mind, obsessed with the family curse, creating threats where none existed? How do we separate paranoia from real danger?" "Tell me about the day of his death," Holmes continues. "Did anything unusual happen?" Mortimer consults his notes. Sir Charles received a letter that morning, delivered by hand from Coombe Tracy, the nearest town. His butler Barrymore said Sir Charles seemed agitated after reading it. He spent the day pacing his study and appeared troubled at dinner. "Do you know what was in this letter?" Watson asks. Mortimer shakes his head. "No one knows. Sir Charles apparently burned it in the fireplace. Barrymore only mentioned it because Sir Charles kept taking it out and rereading it throughout the day, as if trying to make a decision about something." Holmes leans forward with interest. A letter that agitated him, that he reread compulsively, and then destroyed. That suggests either highly personal content or something incriminating. Did Sir Charles have any enemies? Any business disputes or personal conflicts? "None that I know of," Mortimer replies. "Sir Charles was universally liked. He donated generously to local charities, provided employment for many local people, and never engaged in the sort of feuds that sometimes divide country communities." But Holmes isn't satisfied. Universal popularity often masks hidden resentments. Someone always benefits from a wealthy man's death. "Now the walk itself," Holmes says. "You mentioned yesterday that Sir Charles customarily walked down the Yew Alley each evening. Was this widely known?" Mortimer nods. Everyone in the household knew. He was a creature of habit, took the same walk at approximately the same time every night around 10 o'clock, rain or shine. Anyone watching the house would have known his routine. "Excellent," Holmes murmurs. "Predictable habits make perfect opportunities for those who wish to arrange accidents." Continue. "What happened that night?" Mortimer refers to his notes again. According to Barrymore, Sir Charles left the house at approximately 10 minutes past 10. He took no coat despite the cool evening, and he carried his walking stick. Barrymore assumed he would return within 20 minutes as usual, but when midnight came and Sir Charles hadn't returned, Barrymore became worried. Why did he wait until midnight to investigate? Watson asks. That's nearly 2 hours. Mortimer explains. Barrymore assumed Sir Charles might have decided to walk further than usual. It was a clear night with a full moon, good conditions for walking. He didn't want to appear overly protective of his employer. Holmes nods. So for 2 hours, Sir Charles was alone on that pathway, more than enough time for someone to approach him, terrify him, and escape. What did Barrymore find when he finally went looking? He took a lantern and walked down the Yew Alley. Mortimer continues. The gate at the far end, the Moor gate, was closed but not latched. And there, about 50 yards from the gate, lying on the path, was Sir Charles's body. Barrymore ran back to the house immediately and sent a boy to fetch me. What time did you arrive? Holmes asks. Mortimer checks. Approximately 1 o'clock in the morning. I examined the body where it lay before it was moved. Sir Charles was lying on his face, arms outstretched, fingers digging into the ground as if he'd been crawling or trying to pull himself forward. Can you picture that horrifying scene, detective? A wealthy man lying dead in the darkness, his fingers clawed into the earth, his face frozen in an expression of ultimate terror. What could inspire such desperate, futile struggle? His face was contorted beyond recognition, Mortimer says, his voice dropping. The expression was one of absolute horror, eyes bulging, mouth open in a silent scream. I've been a doctor for 20 years, and I've never seen such terror captured in death. Whatever he saw in his final moments, it was beyond anything in normal human experience. Holmes interrupts. You keep saying what he saw. How do you know he saw anything? Could he not have simply suffered a massive heart attack? Mortimer shakes his head firmly. His eyes were fixed on a point beyond the gate, toward the moor. He died looking at something, Mr. Holmes, and whatever it was, it literally frightened him to death. The medical evidence? Holmes probes. Mortimer responds professionally. Death was caused by cardiac arrest, likely brought on by extreme stress and fear. Sir Charles had a weak heart. I'd been treating him for it. But his condition wasn't so severe that he should have died simply from walking. Something triggered a catastrophic cardiac event. Now, Holmes says intently, tell me about the footprints, both Sir Charles's and the other ones. This is clearly the detail that has haunted Mortimer most. He takes a deep breath. I examined the path carefully before the body was moved. Sir Charles had walked down the Yew Alley normally. His footprints showed a steady gait, pausing occasionally, presumably to smoke his cigar. But about 50 yards from the Moor gate, everything changed. His footprints suddenly deepened and lengthened. He'd broken into a run. But the strangest thing was that he appeared to be running on his toes, as if trying to move as quickly as possible. The prints showed he was in absolute panic. Watson looks puzzled. Running toward the gate or away from it? Mortimer's response chills the room. That's what's so peculiar. He was running away from the gate, back toward the house, as if something at the gate had terrified him so badly that he tried to flee. But his heart gave out before he could reach safety. Holmes stands and begins pacing. So Sir Charles walked calmly down the path, reached the vicinity of the gate, saw or heard something that caused him to turn and run in terror, and died from heart failure during that panicked flight. What about the other footprints? Mortimer's voice becomes barely audible. The prints of a gigantic hound. They were clearly visible in the soft earth along the side of the path. The creature had apparently walked parallel to the Yew Alley, keeping pace with Sir Charles but staying in the shadows among the yew trees. Describe these prints precisely, Holmes demands. Size, depth, gait pattern, everything you observed. Mortimer closes his eyes, recalling. The prints were enormous, far larger than any dog I've ever seen. Each paw print was as large as my hand. They showed the animal had been moving slowly, almost stalking, staying about 10 yards from the path itself. The prints approached from the direction of the Moor gate, Mortimer continues. They followed alongside Sir Charles's path for some distance. Then at the point where Sir Charles turned to run, the prints changed. The animal had apparently charged. The prints deepened, the stride lengthened, indicating a running animal of tremendous size and weight. Think about this evidence, detective. If these prints were real, They indicate an animal larger than any known dog breed, stalking a man through the darkness, then charging when he discovered it. But could prints be faked? Could someone create false tracks to suggest a monster? "Where did these prints lead?" Holmes asks intently. Mortimer replies, "After approaching Sir Charles's body, they retreated back toward the moor. I followed them as far as I dared, but they led into the marsh area, where the ground becomes too soft and dangerous to track. The creature, whatever it was, returned to the wildest part of the moor." Holmes stops pacing. "Dr. Mortimer, you're an educated man. You understand that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Yet you're suggesting that a supernatural hound, the ghost of Hugo Baskerville's victim, killed Sir Charles. Can you hear how that sounds?" Mortimer looks anguished. "I know how it sounds, Mr. Holmes. I've struggled with it for 3 months. My scientific training tells me it's impossible. But I saw those prints. I saw the expression on Sir Charles's face, and I know the legend that has haunted this family for generations. How else do I explain what happened?" "Let's consider alternatives," Holmes says. "Could the prints have been made by a large dog, a mastiff or bloodhound belonging to someone in the area?" Mortimer shakes his head. "I investigated that possibility. There are no dogs of that size within 20 miles of Baskerville Hall. Besides, why would such a dog be stalking Sir Charles specifically?" "Could the prints have been fabricated?" Watson suggests. "Someone with a cast or mold could create false tracks." Holmes nods approvingly. "An excellent thought, Watson. Dr. Mortimer, did you examine the prints closely enough to determine if they were genuine animal tracks or artificial impressions?" Mortimer considers. "They appeared genuine to me. There were claw marks, variations in depth suggesting natural animal movement. But I'm not an expert in such matters. I suppose it's possible they were fabricated, though that would require considerable planning and knowledge." Holmes moves to another angle. "The letter Sir Charles received that morning. Could it have been a threat? Or perhaps a request to meet someone at the Moor gate?" Mortimer looks startled. "I never considered that possibility. But yes, if the letter requested a meeting, that would explain why he went to the gate and why he seemed agitated all day. And it would explain the timing," Holmes adds. "Someone who knew his walking schedule could have arranged to meet him at precisely the right time and place. But what happened at that meeting that caused him such terror?" Watson has a thought. Could someone have been waiting at the gate with a large dog? Not a supernatural hound, but a trained attack dog? Sir Charles sees the dog, panics, runs, and his weak heart gives out. The murderer then retreats with the dog, leaving only the tracks. Holmes smiles. "Very good, Watson. That's exactly the sort of rational explanation we need to explore. Dr. Mortimer, one more crucial question. Who inherits Sir Charles's estate and fortune?" "Sir Henry Baskerville," Mortimer replies. "But he was in Canada when Sir Charles died. He only learned of the death weeks later when my letter reached him. He couldn't possibly have been involved." Holmes nods. "Indeed. But who inherits if Sir Henry dies? Who is next in line?" Mortimer looks troubled. "There is no one else. Sir Henry is the last of the Baskervilles. If he dies without heirs, the estate would pass to distant cousins, the Stapletons, I believe, though they've never claimed any connection to the family. But they live near Baskerville Hall." "Interesting," Holmes murmurs. "Very interesting indeed. So we have a young man in Canada who inherits a fortune and an estate, and we have neighbors who might become heirs if that young man were to die. That's motive, Dr. Mortimer. That's cold, calculated motive for murder." Can you see how Holmes's mind works, Detective? While everyone focuses on supernatural explanations, he's building a case based on the oldest motive in history: greed. Someone stands to gain from the deaths of the Baskerville heirs, and that someone may be using the family legend as cover for murder. "But the footprints," Mortimer protests. "How do you explain those enormous paw prints?" Holmes responds calmly. "I don't explain them yet, but I guarantee there's a rational explanation. Perhaps a trained dog of unusual size, perhaps fabricated tracks, perhaps some combination we haven't considered. But I refuse to believe in demon hounds until every natural explanation has been exhausted." There's a knock at the door. Sir Henry Baskerville has arrived. Before they meet him, Holmes gives final instructions to Mortimer. Say nothing about the footprints or the supernatural elements. Let's see what Sir Henry makes of the situation when presented with only the basic facts, and watch carefully how he reacts. His responses may tell us whether he's in genuine danger or part of an elaborate fraud. So tell me, Detective, do you believe Dr. Mortimer's account of the footprints? Could they be genuine tracks from an enormous animal, or must they be fabricated? And what about that mysterious letter Sir Charles received and then burned? What could it have contained that troubled him so deeply? Most importantly, if this isn't a supernatural curse, then who benefits from making the Baskervilles believe they're doomed? This investigation into Sir Charles's death has raised more questions than answers. Every piece of evidence could support either a supernatural explanation or a brilliantly conceived murder plot. The truth lies somewhere in those footprints on the moor, in that burned letter, and in the terrified expression frozen on a dead man's face. Join me next time as we meet Sir Henry Baskerville himself, the young heir who's walked into a deadly trap without knowing it. Already forces are moving against him, and Holmes must decide whether to send him to Devonshire or keep him safe in London. But can anyone truly be safe when the curse of the Baskervilles awakens? Until then, remember, the most terrifying monsters are often the ones that leave footprints we can measure and analyze.